I'd say in the last 48 hours, Dave got a haircut. I don't think I've seen him wear that shirt on an episode on the I Love Seville network. I think that may be a relatively fresh shirt.
You're very perceptive.
It's 2 for 2. And now we're going to hear why this man is going to make a fantastic delegate this morning. Are we not, Keith?
That's what we're going to do. I'm looking forward to it. I was thinking on the way in this morning, our little presentation you and I gave together at the Virginia Housing Conference. That was a lot of fun.
It was.
We're pretty good with a little bit with the gift of the gab, and we did a little bit of planning. Maybe very little bit of planning, and
turned out on a little bit, but it went well.
It went excellent, and so I'm excited about today because I think you handed us a little piece of sheet here, and I think on Real Talk with Keith Smith, you're going to talk about your housing platform. So we're excited about it.
I mean, in part, it's homage to you as for all the great work you've done on affordable housing, and I thought this would be a great forum for unveiling my.
You can keep it coming.
Yeah. The cameras aren't on yet, Keith.
Damn it.
They're not on yet. You're not getting the praise he loves and he yearns for. Judah Wickhauer is the director. We'll start the program here in a matter of moments. If you have questions for Dave, put them in the feed, and we will relay them live on air. We have already questions coming in from someone who would like me not to reference her by name. It's signed Scottish Charlottesville, and she is asking about the Dewberry. So we'll talk about that with Dave. We got a ton of stuff on upzoning. Good gosh. Upzoning is the topic du jour. Judah Wickhauer, we can follow your lead, my friend. Good Friday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk with Keith Smith. Thank you kindly for joining us. A great day here in downtown Charlottesville. In today's program, a spotlight on a candidate running for delegate. You know him as a former mayor of Charlottesville, Virginia, a housing advocate, just kind of someone who champions the Charlottesville area. We know him as Dave Norris and as a good guy. And he's going to spend an hour and change with us taking your questions, talking about his platform. I'm going to ask him about the competition. You have some of the competition watching the program as we speak. And we're just going to talk about how... frankly speaking, gentlemen, if we go to the 3-shot and we welcome the guys, Judah Wickhauer, our director, we're going to know what? June, is it the 20th?
June 20th.
June 20th, we have an idea of what's happening here. And Keith Smith, I'm not super smart here, but that's not that far away, June 20th. Let's put it that way.
Do I have enough? I have enough fingers. I could do it.
Right. That's pretty close.
That's pretty close. Don't throw difficult questions at the Marine at 10:20 in the morning, okay?
On the second coffee.
Actually, this is first. So we have a little catching up to do.
We'll catch up.
So the caffeine needs to kick in a little bit, Dave, in order to do this. The
evening... Not to throw a wrench into that narrative, but actually early voting starts 3 weeks from now. So
there you go.
It's here. The election's here. So
what's the magic number? We have an off year. No president, no governor. What's the magic number total votes history would suggest?
Well, if you look at the last time they had, Kathy Galvin and Sally Hudson ran against each other for this seat. It was a slightly modified version of this seat, and Sally won about 6,000 votes, and Kathy won about 3,000 votes. There will be more voters in the booth this time around because there's also a state senate race on the ballot, which is going to draw a lot of people out. Sally Hudson obviously running for that new seat, state senate seat. Cree Dees moved here to run for that state senate seat. And we have a bunch of city council races on the ballot as well. And so there's a lot of activity happening, and so I expect we'll see more than just.
I can see the turnout in the city being strong. Maybe some of the other
Right.
other jurisdictions, maybe not as heavy because of
Correct.
those
Correct.
local races.
And
but-
also because you have three candidates with name recognition. You have Bellamy and Dave and Katrina. They have name recognition here. That's going to draw folks to the polls. So maybe the magic number, if you had it on the whiteboard, is 6,500 here. I mean, if
No, it's more than that.
you think
Yeah,
over 7,
And in order to win this
yeah,
thing,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, well.
because you
it's
got
hard to
three
say.
splitting votes.
Yeah, yeah.
But we're talking about the primary now,
The
right?
primary.
Well, yeah.
At this point, right?
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about before with
Yeah, got
Kathy and Sally. But yeah, it could be. It could be right there.
Yeah.
So we changed the district a little bit, right? That might be a good kickoff conversation. Some folks that may be watching or listening may not exactly know how the district got
Yeah.
redistricted a little bit. So why don't you kick off
And
just at a high level?
That's a
with
great question, great point, because that's often the question I'm asked first. Is like,
Yeah.
well, what district is this? What is the district? And so
Look at me, huh?
Good job.
The 54th district includes the entire city of Charlottesville and the sort of outer, the close-in suburbs of Albemarle County. And so kind of goes north to Carsbrook and east to basically Pantops and south down to Mill Creek and points around Mill
It's kind
Creek.
of an urban ring, right?
It's the urban ring.
Yeah.
And so, but most of the district is the city. 55% of the district is city, 45% county by population. And then you have the 55th district, which is, most of the rest of Albemarle County and other some parts of other counties, and that's the one right now that Rob Bell represents.
That's right.
And he has recently announced that he's not going to be running for re-election, and so I don't know if the Republicans are planning to run somebody for that seat. I assume they will. And then Kellen Squire and Amy Laufer are running for the Democratic nominations.
So I do want to give a shout out to Rob Bell because he's in my district, and I tell you what, I don't know how he does it,
Hell of a politician.
but anytime something happens in my life,
Yeah.
I get a personal letter from him. I don't know how the man
Well, how
does
about
it.
the guy? Not only Rob, but even his son, side of the road with the big poster board, thanking people on the side of the road after the election.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he wins races in years past, literally outside my neighborhood, thanking people.
Yeah.
But
Now, Rob's great at constituent service.
that's if you want to know how to do it,
Yeah.
just look at his playbook
Right.
because man, it's unbelievable. I mean,
Yeah.
all the recent votes related to real estate, I got a letter in the mail. Hey, this is what happened. Now I'm a bit of a geek, so I kind of knew about it already.
Right.
But for those who don't in my line of work, it's very helpful.
Yep, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit more about you, Dave. So why did you decide to do it, man?
Sure. Well, it's an opportunity that I couldn't pass up, and it's an opportunity to bring about some change that's badly needed. We need the state of Virginia to step up and be a better partner for our localities, for our communities when it comes to some of the big challenges that we're facing here, whether that's affordable housing, which is what we're going to talk about today in some part, or mental health reform. It could be economic opportunity. We need our state legislature to stand resolutely behind the women of our Commonwealth when it comes to reproductive freedom, access to health care. There's so many issues. And if you go to my website, which is votefordave.org, you'll see a long list
Look
of
at you,
issues.
huh?
Reasons why I'm running. That's why I'm running, is to help create positive change. That's why I ran for city council. And that's why I'm running for state delegate. The tagline on my campaign materials is the proven leader with a bold vision for positive progressive change. And that's not only a bunch of words, it also happens to be true. And so people who know me know of my track record in bringing people together to get good things done. And that's both in the nonprofit world, where I've been involved for almost 3 decades now, but also in the civic sphere as a city councilor, as a mayor. I can point to a long record of accomplishments and very proud of those, but this is an opportunity to kind of build on that work, and particularly on issues like affordable housing, where we still have major challenges and we need more support from the state to help us wrestle with them.
Absolutely. I mean, where do we begin there? I mean,
Well,
do you want
I
to
mean-
start upzoning? Do you want to start housing affordability?
Well,
do you
I
want
think
to start
I think Dave wants to unveil his affordable housing or housing affordability, as I prefer to call it,
Yeah.
on the show. So if you want to kick off with that, then I do want to get into the Drewberry because I've been getting a bunch of emails and texts on that.
I mentioned to him we got one before the show.
Yeah.
And we got upzoning questions.
Got
we
it.
got questions. We got a lot right here. A lot right here.
Yeah.
So we'll give you
who
a few
knows where to
minutes,
start?
and then we're going to take it away from
all
you
right.
Yeah.
and let everybody else.
Let's go with, where do you want to start there?
Let me just dive in. I'm just going to dive in because, I'm going to start actually a little bit a few years ago.
Okay.
When I was in 2004, 2005, I was running Pacham, which is a local homeless ministry, and we had people staying at our shelter every night who were homeless, many of whom were working, some of them working full-time jobs, but what they had in common was they couldn't afford the cost of housing here. That was 2004, 2005. So this is not a new issue. And in 2005, two different reports came out, one from the Monticello Area Community Action Agency, MACA, one from the Charlottesville Chamber of Commerce, both talking about needs of this region, needs of this community. And they both had the number one item on both of those reports, coming from two very different perspectives, was we need more affordable housing. The Chamber was saying we need it because our employers are having a hard time attracting workers because the cost of housing is so high. MACA, the anti-poverty agency, said we need more affordable housing because our clients can't afford the cost of housing here. So when I ran for city council, that was the number one item on my platform, was affordable housing, and the number one plank was to create a robust affordable housing fund in the city budget. It took 3 years of pushing and pushing and pushing because there was a lot of opposition to it within City Hall and within certain segments of the community who were quite enamored with the status quo here and didn't see it as a problem.
That hasn't changed, by the
I
way.
know. That's what I'm getting
Just so
to.
that you know. In case you were wondering.
That's exactly what I'm getting to, Keith. That's
Okay,
what
I'll shut up.
No. You're helping to lay the foundation. So, but after about 3 years of advocacy and mobilizing, we would pack city council chambers with hundreds of residents, and we finally got it passed, the Charlottesville Affordable Housing Fund, which since its inception has helped to construct, renovate, preserve, sustain over 2,000 units of affordable housing in
big
this
time.
community. So
Yeah.
it wasn't just lip service. We actually got it passed. It took a lot of work against a lot of opposition, and then it actually has produced results. And that's the same mentality that I will bring to the General Assembly if I'm elected, is, the very first item on my platform, my affordable housing platform, which I'm unveiling here today on Real Talk with Keith Smith, is to expand the Virginia Housing Trust Fund, which is the state's equivalent of Charlottesville's Affordable Housing Fund. Charlottesville's Affordable Housing Fund is capitalized right now around $200 per citizen, per citizen. The state's housing fund is much smaller on a per capita basis. And so I'm proposing that we work towards capitalizing that fund at about $100 per capita. I'd love eventually to get it to $200, but that's a huge lift from where they are now. And why is that important? Because then we can start to build more of the housing that we need. Not just, there's all kinds of housing. We need first-time home ownership. You have worked a lot on a community land trust, both locally, and I know you've been supportive of other land trusts around Virginia. It'd be great to have more funding for that model.
I'll take it.
I'm sure you will. Permanent supportive housing, which works to help get the chronically homeless off the street and into permanent housing. Mixed income, mixed use, multifamily housing, revitalization of public housing, low-income housing, reparative housing, home renovations for the elderly. There's a long list of housing needs that, without having a robust Virginia Housing Trust Fund, we're not able to meet. So that's number one, is funding. That was the secret to getting 2,000 units built, supported, sustained, renovated here in Charlottesville, and that's the secret to starting to get our arms around. There's a gap of over 200,000 units, affordable units, in the state of Virginia as a whole, and we've got to do more to get our arms around that need. So number one, first and foremost, I am going to push to do in the General Assembly what I pushed to do successfully on the City Council, and expand the supply of funding for affordable housing. Without dollars, nothing happens. We can talk and talk and talk, but dollars is ultimately what makes these things
But the
happen.
second part of that, and,
Yes.
and thank you, I didn't get a chance to read into this, so I'm taking
Yeah.
a bit of a stab here. The second part of that is how do we get these projects approved, right?
Right.
So you can have the funding for them, but how do they get approved? Now, I can tell you some local.
Or in Charlottesville's case, you don't even have the land to do the projects.
That's,
I mean, right now, you don't have the land to do the projects in Charlottesville.
you don't have the land, but maybe with the upzoning, which we'll get into a little bit later, that might help. But I'm hearing from local elected officials, in public meetings, this exact set of words, that if we don't start approving projects locally, we're going to possibly get that removed from us at the state level. Is that possible? Does that make any sense? And is that even possible?
It's hard to believe, but then some states have done exactly that.
Out west they have.
In California right now, the localities who have not stepped up to create affordable housing strategies, this state has essentially said to developers, you have choice, builder's choice. You can build what you want.
You have to check certain boxes.
I know,
Right, good.
but it's definitely, it's not an idle threat. Now, I don't see it necessarily happening in Virginia that way, but if you go to number 3, and I'm going to post this, by the way, on my website, Vote for Dave, and my social media today, but number 3, I'll jump ahead a little bit, is we need stronger incentives for localities to eliminate onerous regulatory barriers to housing development. That's getting at what you're talking about. When it takes years to approve a housing project, when the carrying costs, as you know.
This is number 3 is eliminate red tape.
Yes.
That's what that number 3 means, right?
We've heard that before, haven't we?
I think that's what that means.
We've heard turn green tape.
Right.
red
That's a
tape
lot
into
of
green
words.
tape. I
That's
did it.
eliminate
My
red
dyslexia
tape right
kicked in.
there.
Eliminate
That's
red
good.
tape. And,
The coffee's kicking in, but it'll kick in a few minutes.
I see that. And that's one area that I actually, so I went to, well, you were there, Keith, were you at the Virginia Governor's Housing Conference?
I
this
was.
past- That's right.
I actually
did
didn't
see you
speak.
there.
This was the first time I didn't
That's
speak,
right.
which was
That's
really
right.
awesome because I got a chance.
You didn't speak?
I didn't speak.
You didn't speak?
Yeah, I didn't speak.
Okay.
I don't think I did. Did
You didn't
I?
speak?
I don't remember you speaking.
Yeah, I don't
this
think I
time.
did.
No, I'm surprised you didn't speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying right there.
Is he busting my chops?
I know.
so.
Hold on a
so.
second.
That's the
Hold
talk-
on a second. Give me a minute.
That's
Give me
the
a minute.
talk show
Give me a
over
minute.
there.
I was going to make a
That's
hair
the talk
comment
show.
in the beginning that one of the
right.
criteria to be on this
He's got
set is
great
to have
hair.
a really good set of hair.
He's got great hair.
And if elections are determined by that, you're doing good.
Oh, he's
I don't
looking
know, I
sharp.
don't know.
He's got great hair.
No, actually,
Both of my opponents have excellent hair. by the
Yeah,
way.
One of my
So,
favorite aspects of, and you guys can tell that we know Dave. We know Bellamy. We know Dave. Good guy. We just, he's a good guy here. One of my favorite aspects of his website, if you scroll down on the homepage below the fold, is the photo of Dave from yesteryear. I mean, look at tall, skinny Dave right here.
No, my daughter is in my backpack. She's
What do
like,
oh my gosh, I didn't even notice that.
So what year was that?
well, she would have been that.
She really is. Wow.
She was born in 2000, so that would have been 2002, maybe.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
I think I did that math, right?
Close.
Close enough.
I think this is
Yeah.
going to be.
You know, Dave, don't ask for details, okay?
This is going to be the most fun interview Dave has done on his campaign trail.
Is this an interview?
This,
is that
this
what
is an
it is?
opportunity for people to get to know Dave here.
Yeah.
Here's the question I have for him. Then I'll throw it to you here, Keith. I know you are a champion for housing affordability or affordable housing, however we want to call it. We talked earlier this week on our 12:30 show that in Pantops there's now 1 bedroom, 1 bathrooms for $1,800 a month, and this
Yes,
is with
yes.
no walkability. Dairy Market, we love Dairy
Oh, yeah,
Market.
sure.
2,000 plus for a 1 bedroom, one bath, and there's plenty of other spots in town where a 1 bedroom, 1 bath can get $2,200, $2,300 a month. This is having an impact. I get it, the work that you guys do, but can that impact keep up with everything's,
Yeah, I mean, in
Free
part,
market.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why I've said from the beginning in working on this issue is you have to be deliberate about it, and you have to just be intentional about it, and you have to keep pushing every month, every year, and ask the question, how do we build more units? How do we add more supply?
I'm literally got on the agenda, on the public portion of the agenda for Wednesday's Albemarle County Board of Supervisors, because they were supposed to be talking about the developer incentives, and guess what's not on the agenda? The developer incentives, right?
Well, you just talk about the pushing back of the upzoning, what we were talking about before the show.
Yeah, so, well, I prefer zoning rewrite. We have a bit of a conflict on that, but zoning
Tomato,
rewrite,
tomato.
Right.
tomato.
Affordable housing affordability.
Yeah,
Exactly.
housing. Well, I happen to think I'm right, but anyway, that's okay. But the pushback is gonna be there because look, what, you're referring to the HOA conversation.
No. I'm referring to the
I
fact
lost
that
it.
this is all getting delayed again.
Oh yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's not surprise to us. Not surprise to anybody who's watching. I have a mustache bet with Neil Williamson.
Neil's watching.
Neil Williamson that would be adopted by June 19th. I said no. He said yes.
Oh.
My mustache is doing good because what the last module, which I think is the most important module, from my perspective, is how the red tape is going to turn to green tape, right? How are we going to go ahead? Look, if we say this is what we're going to do, this is the models, this is the math, but it takes 2 years to get through the system, it's not going to help us out. So how they're going to do that is super important, and they just punted it another month.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
That was supposed to come out on the 10th. It came out early this morning, maybe in May.
Well, here's the really intriguing
And I got
thing
really
is-
excited that my mustache is in good shape.
Well, here's the intriguing thing, and I'm curious, and maybe you can help me understand how what you're doing weaves through, say, like upzoning and council type stuff here. Because delegate is not council, council is not delegate. But how does what you're doing impact things like a new council may be coming in November, upzoning may not be approved, there's 3 spots up for grabs. How is that going to impact what they do with policy and upzoning and approval come January 1? Does your sphere get into this at all or no, Dave?
Well, that's the question I was trying to ask.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the short answer is no. Only in that, obviously, state government, the General Assembly doesn't get involved in local zoning plans and zoning rewrites, but certainly creating an environment that's supportive of building creative urban infill housing and creating a range of housing types that are affordable to the people that do the hard work of making the city function. Those are all things that state needs to step up on, and it's all stuff that's reflected in this platform. And so, yes and no. I mean, no, the state's not going to tell Charlottesville, how to implement its zoning.
But it's interesting. So, as you know, Charlottesville and Albemarle have a very specific carve-out in the affordable housing unit ordinance that actually the city and the county can pretty much do what it wants as long as it's wrapping in the housing affordability flag exclusive of the state. Is that not correct?
Yeah, there are different sort of carve-outs.
Sure.
The county's carve-out is one that, in a certain sort of neighborhood model of development, that a certain number of units can be set aside for 80% of AMI, area median income and below. But there's honestly, Keith, and you know this better than I, there's so many loopholes in these things. Sure. That the practical result, and I've heard several county supervisors speak to this, the practical result has fallen far short of the original vision and purpose of that provision. And what often happens is that a developer will put on the market a unit that's priced at 79.9% of AMI, and they only have to put it on the market for a certain number of days. And if it doesn't sell,
well, that's apparently coming back on Wednesday. We're going to find out about that because the conversations I'm having is they're kind of doing this back to what didn't work, which was put it out there for 90 days and all this kind of great stuff. I'll find out more on Wednesday and report in. Arlington County adopted its missing middle.
Right.
That is huge for the Eastern Seaboard.
That was huge. That's why it made it onto this list here, because that.
Talk about that, and how do you feel about that?
No, I think it was great, and because again, for people who may not know what missing middle housing is, basically we're talking about Obviously we have to address the housing needs for people at the very low end of the economic spectrum, 0 to 30% of AMI. The market does a great job of meeting the needs at the people at the high end of the economic spectrum. But what about the people in the middle, the working class professionals, who are right now just being insanely priced out of this market? So what Arlington and many localities are looking to do is create incentives and measures and provisions for more development of basically moderate income housing and different housing types. It's not necessarily always going to be a single family home on a half-acre lot with a white picket fence around it, but let's create provisions and incentives that allow higher density, moderate density, higher than what's there now, but moderate density housing in a neighborhood that might be very low density now to accommodate these new houses, so that people, again, teachers, police officers, firefighters, can afford to live. I'll never forget the city council meeting we had, where we had some NIMBYs, not in my backyard folks, that came to speak out against a particular infill housing project that was targeted at, it was 0 to, I forget which one, it was either 60% or 70% anyhow of area median income. And I said to the planner, like, can you help us understand what that number means, what that translates to in terms of who is actually going to be living in this project? And it turns out that planner, the city planner who was reporting out to council, themselves would qualify. So the folks in the neighborhood saying, we don't want this because it's going to bring in undesirables, it's going to lower our property values, it's going to drag down the neighborhood. And the literal city planner who's presenting it to council would be one person who...
So I can tell you right now, if you did that person could not afford it because AMI has gone up so high.
Yeah. So anyhow, it's so missing middle is a key part of the strategy, and but we've got to address it all ends. I love the old Neil Williamson quote, I always butcher it, but Neil, weigh in. What's housing for all incomes everywhere, something like that.
That's pretty darn close. He's watching right now, and he's sharing some content. He's slinging some content. He says, does Dave have a plan, you're talking about it, to make building homes easier in Virginia? And it's more housing for everyone, everywhere.
More housing, thank you. More housing for everyone, everywhere. This is the plan that's getting at Neil's question. We're expanding the Virginia Housing Trust Fund. That's going to help us.
He's going to put it on the website, too.
I'll put it on, number 2, make accessory dwelling units by right throughout the state. If I want to add a mother-in-law apartment in my house, in my basement, in my backyard, above my garage, the government shouldn't tell me I can't do that. That, to me, is the simplest, low-hanging fruit for how we can increase.
So you're saying at the state level, we're going to mandate that out to the local level? Mandate's maybe a short word.
Give them the autonomy.
The ability.
Right.
Give them the ability.
Start there.
Excuse me, autonomy.
There was a bill this year in the General Assembly.
Sally put that in, right?
Sally was involved in it, but then there was some back and forth about whether it was going to be a mandate,
sure,
or whether and they got caught up in the language, and I don't believe anything actually resulted at the end of the day. But the purpose of that was, and again, mandate is probably ended up being unpalatable for too many people, but the purpose of that is let's open it up, that one option. If we do nothing else, that one option is going to do so much to increase affordable housing supply and bring more money into the pockets of homeowners. So it's a win-win, and for those homeowners,
it helps people stay in their communities.
And it helps people stay in their communities. It's just
it doesn't. You don't get gentrified, frankly.
Right. So that's one we should be pushing for. Again, eliminate cut red tape, Jerry. Eliminate onerous regulatory barriers. Encourage missing middle housing. We need a state-level residents' bill of rights for redevelopment. This is something that I worked on very hard here.
What does that mean?
In Charlottesville, when the Charlottesville Redevelopment Housing Authority was starting the process of redeveloping public housing, initially that got very sort of a cold reception from residents because they've seen in many other cities all over the country that when government comes in to improve neighborhoods, too often the people that get kicked out of those neighborhoods and aren't allowed back into the improved neighborhoods are the people that have lived there for generations in some cases. And so it's a very top-down approach. We saw it with Vinegar Hill here in Charlottesville with urban renewal. So there was a lot of distrust. And so I sat down with Alex Galata, who is chair of executive director of Legal Aid, Holly Edwards, Joy Johnson, a number of other people, resident leaders, others, advocates, housing authority officials, brought them together, and over a period of months, we crafted on my laptop a residents' Bill of Rights. It was the first one in the country that guaranteed resident involvement, guaranteed one-for-one replacement of all units, guaranteed that residents would have priority access to the jobs that were created in the construction process, guaranteed that the new units, the new apartments would have access to transportation and all the social services that residents needed. And that Bill of Rights is what allowed the redevelopment process to move forward. And now it's getting accolades all over the country. What's happening here in Charlottesville with resident-led redevelopment is a gold standard, and we want to take that. It should be something that the state also, so any state dollars that are attached to projects, any low-income housing tax credits, for instance, which come through Virginia Housing, should have a requirement for a residents' Bill of Rights for redevelopment. It makes neighborhood revitalization a truly inclusive and effective and successful enterprise versus a very top-down model which has failed consistently and leaves low-income people out of luck.
He does meet and greets in homes where he gets to know people, which I think is a great idea. Where does the housing point fall in importance? Like in comparison with, like, say, gun violence, sure, reproductive rights. I mean, there's been a lot over the course of, say, the last year, 18 months, that's kind of penetrated the attention of housing affordability on the campaign trail.
Absolutely. Sorry, I'm getting over a bug. So
same allergies.
Yeah. So what I hear a lot from voters is, the cost of housing, as you said. Gun violence is certainly a concern. There's no doubt about it. But people are wanting actual solutions. They're not wanting lip service. They're not wanting thoughts and prayers. They're wanting actual solutions. And so, in too many cases, gun violence is a symptom of it's a sick society that has easy access to high power weaponry. And so how do you address sort of the underlying causes and issues? We have serious mental health challenges. We have teen mental illness is through the roof. We've got major challenges with young people growing up. Some of the young people at the forum you and I were at over there in Bellamy, over on 10th Street.
Yep.
Some of the young people in the room there were saying, and I don't want to put words in their mouth, but like, look, we don't have positive adult role models and mentors. We don't have positive activities for young people. People don't see a future for themselves here. Sort of, what do you expect? Like, we need more investment in our young people. We need better options, better role models, mental health supports, all those things. So I unveiled a mental health platform similar to this, talking about ways that we can invest in our mental health resources in our communities, not specifically relating to gun violence, but I do think it's going to have a positive impact on that. So gun violence, obviously, people are very concerned about schools. There's been some crazy stuff in the schools that that we've all been hearing about. Teachers are wanting better pay. We're losing teachers in Virginia. Teachers locally are frustrated. We have good teachers who are leaving the system.
I've seen you wearing red in support of the teachers at school board meetings.
I mean,
talk to us about why you're passionate about that.
I have 3 children that came up through the Charlottesville Public Schools, and I'm a big advocate for good quality public schools. I'm a big advocate for teachers. We have to support our teachers. We have to trust and listen to our teachers. I spoke at a Virginia Board of Education event recently where they are instituting new history and social science standards, that they basically hired some out-of-state consultants to come in and tell us how we should be teaching history and social sciences in Virginia, instead of sitting down with our local content experts who are Virginia teachers, but they disregarded Virginia teachers, and so the Virginia teachers were, of course, understandably upset and spoke out at this public hearing in large numbers, and I was there to support them. And collective bargaining obviously is an issue that's come up in this campaign, where the city of Charlottesville has really, to their credit, been a real pioneer in that, and Albemarle County has kind of been dragging their feet. But it's
Where do you stand with collective bargaining?
Oh, I'm a strong supporter. I think it's when you improve teacher wages, teacher working conditions, teacher morale, it absolutely improves the learning experience for those children, the educational experience. And honestly, it's a huge step in retaining good teachers. If we want to have good schools, we have to attract and retain the best and brightest teachers.
Well, and I think also a point to also make there is Charlottesville City is doing this. So the market pressure, when the school system literally adjacent to Albemarle's is doing it, if Albemarle doesn't do it, it's going to further lose ground.
Right. Well, and there's an interesting equivalent to that, where the picture you talked about on my website, the living wage movement.
VoteForDave.org.
VoteForDave.org was from the living wage protest. I cut my teeth in Charlottesville politics advocating for living wage. This is when people were wearing the $8 buttons because we were trying to get UVA to pay their employees $8 an hour. At the time, that was considered a living wage. Obviously, it's not anymore. But and all the moral pressure in the world wasn't working. UVA was not budging.
Back to that $8 and get it back a little bit to housing. You made a presentation with Matthew, which rocked my world. That even at $20 an hour right now, you can't afford.
Well, what's the living wage? Yeah. UVA says the living wage is what, 15?
They finally brought it up to $15 an hour.
Yeah, they say 15. Props to Michael Payne. He was involved with that as well. What would you say is a living wage right now? Is it $20 an hour?
No, I mean, for a family of, there's a, you probably know Ridge Schuyler. He puts out an Orange Dot report. And I think they said I'm trying to remember the number now.
It's north of 20.
It was north of 20.
Because you can't even get a rental at 20.
Right. So. But it's not 50. 15's not cutting it. But at least 15's better than what they were paying before. And so kudos to Jim Ryan.
Yeah, but back to the housing thing, right? If we can get more units, therefore, in theory, the price will come down. We're going to do as you know, I chair the land trust. I'm also on the regional housing partnership, which is built by these 4 pillars, right? So I just want to read back to your numbers about who you can help. So we just closed our 23rd home at the land trust. I got some stats here for you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. 65% AMI.
Nice.
The average income was $49,428. Let's call it 50 grand on that. And who we helped: Albemarle Housing Improvement, Albemarle Public Schools, Charlottesville Public Schools, City of Charlottesville, City of Albemarle, City of Henrico. Somebody's coming from Henrico out here. We've got folks in the construction, but Design Electric, Farmington Club, Retired, UVA Hospital. These are all those folks that are in that $50,000 AMI number. And by the way, 70% were female.
Yeah.
Largest buying profile.
Interesting.
Is female. Single female buyers, not in this, but in nationwide. But that's 65% AMI, which is I'm super proud of, because our top end goal is 80.
Right.
We got it down to 65.
But that's not easy to do.
And we did that all with $650,000.
Yeah.
So it can be done.
Yeah.
But to your point, you got to put everybody underneath that tent, and if you can't do that.
Right. So getting back, just to circle back.
I got a lot for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me wrap this up real quick.
Sure.
So moral pressure wasn't working, protests, you name it. I mean, it was working, but not getting the job done. And then when I got into office, Holly Edwards and I and others said, well, the city of Charlottesville's not a small employer ourselves, and so maybe they'll listen to a little bit of economic pressure. And so we worked to get the wages of city employees up, and city bus drivers and city, you name it, teachers and others up to where UVA as another employer, was starting to lose employees to the city of Charlottesville, and so I think that helped to change their minds a little bit. So you have to apply pressure from a variety of angles.
I love that.
To get
I love that. I remember that. Dave, I think voters, including yours truly, are going to vote with schools and safety.
Mm-hmm.
Schools and gun violence. And the schools have got a lot of layers to that onion. I got a message today from, and I think he's watching, Albert Graves, who lives in Crozet. Bus is still late to pick his kid up from school. Like, we're talking every day, 45 minutes, 90 minutes late, a lot of these families. Like Greenwood, the further suburbs, the deeper parts of Albemarle in particular. We know we've had fights and drugs and violence. We got the education piece, the role of the parent with the teacher from a communication standpoint when it comes to LGBTQ plus issues. So I don't know. I see schools and gun violence. I certainly hope housing is a key talking point. But I think those two have really dominated the news cycle.
So I don't think you can separate any one of them. You can't just laser focus on one. They're all tied together to include healthcare, right? It's just
Sure.
And transportation,
And
right? All
economic
this is kind of
opportunity.
grouped in
It's
together. You can't just tackle one. Now, I think if you tackle one, it helps some of the other ones. But again, back to my wheelhouse, which is the housing side of things. If you can't house folks, then the rest of the stuff just gets worse. And this comes from a guy that grew up in the 70s in the city, in New York City, so I kind of understand how that whole spiral works. But to Jerry's question, what's your thoughts on that?
No, I don't disagree. Those are major issues. I think people come to the polls for all kinds of different motives, and but obviously parents have a vested interest in seeing their kids succeed in school. Right now, a lot of kids are struggling in school, and so when I unveiled my mental health platform, I talked about creating a Virginia Community Mental Health Corps that's going to put a lot of mental health support workers, trained mental health support workers in our schools to help address some of the challenges that we're seeing in our schools. When I was on city council, I took the lead role in getting Charlottesville schools to adopt a 3-year-old preschool program, which is now serving hundreds of kids. And so helped to get a fatherhood initiative off the ground in the community to help encourage dads to step up, and that's been doing great work for years. It really has to look at it from a variety of angles, but yeah, we need this, and we need well-funded schools. We need alternatives for kids who are falling through the cracks right now, or dropping out. And so I'm a big advocate for public charter schools. We have a few of them here in our area, and I think for the parents that are fortunate enough to have their kids enroll in them, they really appreciate that. So we want well-funded public schools, well-funded alternative, public charter schools that help meet, help kids realize their highest potential, even if they're not succeeding in the mainstream public schools. So we've got to attack this from all angles. But again, I hate to sound like a broken record here, but it all comes down to attracting and retaining the brightest and best teachers in those classrooms. And right now, teachers are leaving our classrooms in Virginia.
So I'm quickly reading this. What about skilled trades, right?
Skilled trades.
Talk about your platform on that.
Yeah, so a lot of this platform has to do with the supply of housing, but we also have to look at the demand, and on the demand side. And so how do we help the residents be able to increase their incomes to be able to afford the housing that we do have? So we need, again, living wage jobs, skilled trades jobs. Some of these skilled trades that you're always hiring for, HVAC, carpentry, plumbing. Those are very well-paying jobs, and a lot of the workforce in those jobs is aging. And so we have an opportunity, I think, a responsibility to steer encourage more people. Not everybody's on a college track, nor should they be on a
My little brother's a high profile, high skill level.
I think he's going to say something about a doctor here. coming up next here. Is that what he's going to say? Is that next?
No, I actually asked him to borrow money. I did, actually. I'm only
They
kidding.
call Matthew the doctor in the family.
No,
'cause
his
he's
name is
got
Michael.
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 So skilled.
But yeah, I mean, he shows up with his little bag. He does high-end trim carpentry
There you go.
kind of stuff. He's in demand all the way across, for forever. No, I was actually, I did one of my famous, I was in Richmond. I left my wallet home, and I needed to get out of a parking garage, and I had to call my little brother and say, man, could you come hook me up and get me out of a parking
Right,
garage?
right.
What'd you make of the K-Tech? Can I call it a saga? I think I can call it a saga. Charlottesville Almoro Technical Education Center, now owned by Charlottesville.
Yeah.
Almoro County previously tried to purchase K-Tech from the city. Once Almoro County made an offer, it engaged either side to have to buy the other one out. Charlottesville ended up buying Almoro out, despite 70% of the student body living in Almoro County. What'd you make of that, K-Tech? Saga's fair.
Yeah, I was really surprised at the outcome of that. I would love to have been a fly on the wall in those discussions because it doesn't seem like it ended up the way that people thought it was.
The
gonna
math don't add up.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know that we've gotten the full story yet, or maybe we'll never get the full story of how it ended up in city's hands. But I will say, I was shocked, and of course, as a city taxpayer, it's probably a net plus for the city.
How so?
Well, the city right now honestly needs more capacity. And so it gives us another outlet, as we're looking to reconfigure our schools, if that gives us an option, whether I'm not on the city
So
school
you're
board.
thinking peeling it away from the trade and putting actual.
I mean, I'm just saying I hope they don't.
Oh, okay.
But I'm just saying when you have assets, it gives you a chance to move things around if you need to. But my best guess is it'll continue to operate as it is now. It won't end up having an impact on the actual educational experience. But if there's an opportunity at some point in the future to build a bigger K-Tech, a more modern K-Tech, it's been in that building for quite some time. It needs probably some upgrades, and maybe it doesn't necessarily need to be in that spot. Maybe that spot becomes something else, and then the city can build.
Well, they were struggling getting teachers, right?
Oh, yeah. They were struggling to get teachers to. So here, look, there's your conundrum right there. Everybody wants to be a social media influencer when they grow up. No one wants to get into the skilled trades. They don't have enough teachers to teach the kids to learn the skilled trades. I mean, it's a cluster from every single side here. I mean, and as a result, when you call an electrician, he says, I'll see you in 6.5 weeks and you owe me $872.
Right.
Oh, by the way, pay me before I show up.
Yeah. If you want your spot secured.
I literally
in line.
got a situation. We've got a septic field that needs to get replaced for a job. The guy will not show up until 50% is paid up.
Right.
And and I get it. And they're in high demand. And
I want you to have skin in the game. Let me ask you this. Education's a perfect segue into one of your competitors, Katrina Colson. She sat in Keith Smith's seat about a month ago, chairwoman, Albemarle County School Board, an attorney at Charlottesville City. She is running for delegate. Again, we will know June 20th, the primary. This race will be determined probably in the evening hours of the 20th of June. Who's going to win here? Colson, where do you want to start?
I don't know Katrina Colson. I've heard good things about her, and I'm not going to sit here and badmouth either of my competitors. I'm focused on running my race and talking about my issues, whether it's mental health or affordable housing or economic opportunity or reproductive freedom, LGBT, all those. So I don't really. Again, not having worked with her, not having interacted with her, I can't speak from any direct experience. I think a lot of people were concerned about the boards, again, dragging their feet on the collective bargaining. They're finally now stepping up, and it seems like there's a good process or a process in place. We'll see if it's good, but so I'm hopeful that that's coming around. But I just don't know enough about her to, sit here and dissect. I'm focused on my campaign and the reasons that I'm running, and I wish both Katrina and Bellamy all the best, honestly.
The race is a different race than it was a couple weeks ago, because a couple weeks ago we had former Mayor Dave Brown in the race, and we had Deshaun Cooper in the race. Now Deshaun Cooper has refiled paperwork, and he's running for Charlottesville City Council. And Dave Brown made an announcement, this is more work than I anticipated, and he kindly, took the rear exit and got out of the race. So you got 3 candidates
For one slot.
for one slot with the June 20th primary. I have to ask you about Bellamy. He's watching the program now. Bellamy Brown to also come on the network to talk about his campaign. Separation points here. And I know you've highlighted what's on the sheet of paper on your platform, but what are separation points between you and the other candidates?
Well, again, for me, I've been invested in this community for almost 30 years. And so I have a track record of accomplishment. I can point to numerous things in this community where I have helped to bring people together to get X, Y, or Z done, whether that's building housing for the chronically homeless, whether that's starting Pacham, whether that's helping to get the Local Energy Alliance program, LEAP, off the ground. I was on the founding board of that. Worked very closely with our state legislative delegation to get enabling legislation to help make that happen. I've been involved with all kinds of initiatives over the years, and I'm very proud of my record of service, whether it's on education issues, whether it's on choice issues, reproductive freedom. I've been an advocate for the LGBTQ community for many, many years. Long before marriage equality was legal, I supported it and advocated and championed it. And once it became legal, I actually performed dozens of same-sex marriages as a wedding officiant. So I have...
He's in high demand as a wedding officiant.
And so
It's the hair.
it must be
I
the
actually
hair.
been to a wedding that Dave has done. It was fantastic.
Oh, thank
it was
you.
very, it was very fluid, very smooth. And you did a good job of highlighting the connection between it was a man and woman at this particular wedding, highlighting the connection and getting out of the way.
Well, thank you. That's what I try to do.
Because
Yeah,
some
yeah.
folks linger.
Oh, I know.
And it's like, come on now, we
Right.
want to go to cocktail hour. But you
Right.
did it, and then you left. It
But
was
that's
great.
That's a skill.
That is a skill.
Of a seasoned politician, right? Because you sometimes need to know
That's
when
the skill of a public speaker.
of a public speaker.
Yeah, he's got that skill.
When you know when to shut up and
To stop.
and live it. I'm learning that, by the way. I'm learning that. By the way.
And he did it right. He stopped, and everyone was happy. I was just very, very impressed.
So I am trying to get Bellamy's agreed to come on. We just couldn't get the
Great,
schedules
great.
to work on
Yeah.
that. But somewhere
Should
between
get Katrina as well.
between the now and the 20th, we're going to get the two of you guys in, if you're willing to do it, and
happy-
side by side,
happy
and
to
we
do
can
so.
we'll get
Yeah.
out of the way and ask some questions, help folks make a decision.
Do you think? What do you think of the other races? I mean, you live in the city,
I do,
so I
I
have
do.
to ask you
Yeah.
about city council race. I have to ask you about Sally versus Cree.
Sure.
I have to ask you about Kellen and Amy.
Sure.
How about city council first? 5 candidates, more competitive now.
Yeah, I know.
Bob Fenwick,
Yeah.
got the signatures. He's there. Cooper. You have Lloyd Snook. You have Michael Payne, and you have, and I don't know her that well. I want to
Natalie
know her.
Oshrin.
Natalie Oshrin. I need to know her
Natalie's very impressive.
Okay.
We actually work together in the wedding industry.
more. Charlottesville High School graduate, works at Pippin Hill.
Yep.
But contested races matter, and this is what's the most exciting to me about Charlottesville. There's not this automatic coronation of 3 people or
Right,
whatever it
right,
is. So this race is all elections matter, but this one in particular.
Yeah, it's we're getting back, and again, I apologize for my
No problem.
voice
I'm in the same
today.
boat,
It's-
too.
yeah.
I'm in the same boat.
We used to have city council elections in May, and then all the other elections were in November. And the thought by moving them from May to November was that, we'll save money and it'll be a more efficient process. Just lump it all in together in November. I actually think we lost something when we made that move, because as somebody who for decades literally has said we need to be paying, and I've said this on your show, we need to be paying more attention to local politics, local issues, because the decisions that are made in city council chambers, board of supervisors chambers have much more impact on our day-to-day lives
Absolutely.
in many cases than the
All
decisions.
politics is local.
Right,
Flat
right,
out.
right.
That
The
makes sense.
elections were in May. When was the
Yeah.
primary?
It was usually...
Was that the general?
That was the general.
The general was in May. Wow.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And when I ran first, I was among that very last class of people to get, thank you, Keith, I appreciate it.
Good man over there.
He's all right. Yeah.
Yeah. Brought
No,
him
I'm
a
kidding.
water.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Brought him
Would
a
you like
water.
another one, sir?
No, I'm good. I'm good. When was
So it was like 2005, 2006 when that change was made. And my point in saying that is, here we are with, as you said, five city council candidates running for 3 nominations. That should be a big deal. That should be a big focus
Without
of
doubt.
attention. And I worry that it's going to get swallowed up in the state senate race and in the state delegate race, and there's just not going to be enough attention because there are a lot of big issues on council's agenda right now, a lot of big issues on their radar screen, and so I think this is an example of where we may have lost something when we went from.
Well, this is what we're trying to do on Fridays, right? Coffee
Great.
with the candidates,
Great.
coffee with like Jerry and I are trying to bring in both state and local folks to have this conversation because this long format makes a difference, right? And we're not really getting that,
Yeah.
out there.
How
So
challenging is it to overcome the name recognition of an incumbent?
Ooh.
I mean, Snook and Payne are running for re-election. They got
Yeah.
name recognition.
Yeah.
Cooper, is a young guy. His future is extremely bright.
Has he been on here yet?
He has not. Has not. Anytime he wants to come on, he can come on. Oshrin is new, just like Cooper new.
Right.
Fenwick has been on council 1 term. Fenwick has history.
Right.
I'll say that's fair. He's
That's
got
fair.
history.
He's got history.
So what's the value of of name recognition?
Well, I think in general, in politics, name recognition is the name of the game, and so it doesn't always carry the day. You know, when Bob ran for re-election, I think he came in last actually, but even though he was well known,
In 2019, he did. Yeah.
and so and I'm not saying that to be dismissive of Bob.
It was just a fact.
It's just a
Yeah.
fact. I like Bob. I just saw Bob
I
last
don't
week.
think
I
there's
see Bob
anybody
all
you
the time.
don't like, right?
I see the van all the time.
The van, yeah. Bob is he's an iconoclast, and I love that about Bob. But it has endeared him to some people, and maybe not endeared him to others. But anyhow, but yeah, name recognition is huge in politics, but it doesn't always carry the day, and neither does money. You know, I'm going to be vastly outspent and outraised in my race, but money doesn't always win elections. If it did, we would be living under President Michael Bloomberg right now. You know, he had by far the most money of any, and he lasted what, like
2 minutes.
2 Scaramucci's or what?
2 Scaramucci's.
That's funny.
Good reference
that was-
there. I
that
like
was
that.
a
Wow.
political insider
Good-
joke, but,
good reference. So
Anyhow, but I think what people want to see is candidates who are invested in the community, who are coming forward with clear ideas, workable solutions to make this a better place. And so that's what these candidates have to do over the next.
So to Jerry's point, this is a math problem, right? That was with the how many votes it takes you to win it because everything's out large, right? You know, I suspect you'll see the 2 largest numbers with Payne and Snook. So then it's just a matter of somebody getting 1 more vote of the other 3 or
Right.
is there any reason to start changing the at-large? Does it make sense to do districts or wards or whatever
Right.
you want to call it? Does that make sense? Or we're just too small for that?
I have always felt like we were too small for wards, and also wards just introduced the whole notion of
Career politician.
Well, and gerrymandering. Politicians carving out district to serve
To make
themselves.
certain things.
They're choosing their own voters.
And as a one who's been gerrymandered out of a district,
Right.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I now need to drive all the way to Scottsville to vote, and I live in Lake Monticello.
Right. And I just think Charles is such a small
I think they didn't like me,
city.
and they really wanted to put me over there. It just kind of goes right around my house. I never understood that.
Yeah.
I'm serious. It
I
literally
get it.
goes around my
I get it.
house.
He's not joking. I'll throw this to you. You mentioned in the beginning of the program the race for Senate with Sally and Creed.
Right. Yeah.
You mentioned in your opening statement with this topic that, and you said it, you said Creed moved into the district. Now, he did move into the district. That's 100% fine.
Yeah.
He moved into the district. What do you make of that race? Do you call Creed an incumbent
Well,
in this race?
yeah.
Or is he not the incumbent because it's a new district?
Yeah, A, it's a new district, and B, he was living in Bath County.
So you're saying he's not the incumbent?
I don't think of him as the incumbent.
Okay.
He has name recognition.
He's certainly name recognition,
But he's
I
not
can-
an incumbent.
I
I would
understand
agree with
people say, well, he did represent Charlottesville in before, and I have worked with Cree on legislation in the past, and
He's an institution.
He is an institution, and
That's hard to beat.
I think Sally's challenge is to help make the case why she's an alternative that better represents the sensibility of this district. This new district that was created. And that's the big question, is who better represents the sensibility of this district, not who has been in office in that seat or in the Senate seat, but this is a new district, and who better represents that new district. And she is making her best case right now, and she's getting out there. And but Cree is very well liked, very well respected, and they're both raising gobs and gobs.
So
of
much money.
So
What do you think of the power players and the amounts of money that are being contributed to these campaigns here?
Yeah, I
Feel
mean,
okay with that?
I'm an advocate. I've been an advocate for years for campaign finance reform. Virginia has very weak campaign finance reform, campaign finance laws. You can essentially give unlimited amounts of money, which there's no way that cannot have a toxic impact on politics and on legislating. And so I was the first candidate in this race to sign on to the American Promise Pledge, which basically commits us to advocating for undoing the Citizens United decision at the Supreme Court, which basically allows donors open carte blanche to influence policymakers, legislators, politicians. It's really tilted things much more in the direction of the wealthy and the powerful. And I think in this country, the working class gets shafted left and right, and we need candidates who are going to stand up for the little guy and the little gal. And I have chosen not to spend hours a day begging rich people for money for my campaign. It's just not what I'm wired. That's not how I'm wired. I realize it gives me fewer resources to work with, but I'm okay with that. I can sleep well at night. My whole reason for running is to make life better for the working man, the working woman of Virginia, and for all the people that are struggling, the people that don't have access to the resources that a privileged few have access to, and God bless them. But
I'll put that in perspective here, and
Yeah.
this is me talking here. Jerry, Sonia Smith, for example, in the last year, $646,000 in contributions to Virginia campaigns. This according to vpap.org, including nearly $50,000 for Sally Hudson's campaign. That's a lot of money
It is a lot of
in
money.
1 year.
That buys a lot of signs.
And
doesn't it?
VPAP is a fantastic website if you really want to get into the numbers. You can search by name and really dig deep here. I really respected what you said there. I don't think these races should be, what's it called? Is it a kingmaker?
sure.
No, I don't. The kingmaker is a scary proposition, Keith Smith.
Well, it used to be like in the old days, like in Chicago, right? That kind of thing. But you did say earlier, which I agree with. You can win this without a gobs of money, right?
Oh, I intend to. That's
Yeah, I know. I know you well enough to know you're putting 110% in,
Yeah.
110%.
What's the
time.
strategy look like? The tactical strategy?
It's
What's
been
the
just
X's
getting
and
out
O's?
and talking. We've had many opportunities now, and we have many more planned in the home stretch here to get out and talk to voters, to meet and greets and different events. For me, it's also very important to talk about why I'm running, which are the issues that are laid out on my platform. It's not just talking points. It's about the opportunity to create positive change. And again, I have a track record of doing that. And so I'm trying to show how I can bring that same work ethic and mentality and ability to the state level and try and get positive change. So just engaging with voters, talking about the issues. I do my best. I also happen to work a full-time job, as I know other candidates do. I'm not alone in that. And I have other obligations. But and I have my wedding business and I have my kids, and so it's not something I can do full time campaigning, but I'm doing a lot.
So can you fit in the job of being a representative? and all
Oh,
that?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Actually, it works really well for my
shorter-
life.
Yeah,
because
it's a lot different than on the city council,
Right.
right?
Right, because you have this burst of activity.
Right.
The General Assembly
Yeah.
meets either
A
one
lot of
or
folks
2
don't know
months
that.
a year.
Yeah.
January, some sessions are 30-day sessions, some are 60-day sessions, and they're always January or January, February, which also happens to be the 2 slowest wedding months of the year. And so for me, as somebody who's I do almost 100 weddings a year. I perform almost 100 marriages a year. And so, but virtually none in January and February.
So we got to keep you in mind, we're on year 38 and our 40th, we're going to renew our vows
do
for
vow
the
renewals
fourth-
too.
for the 4th time, right?
Oh.
So Yona, my wife, has married me 3 times, so there's no excuses, right?
I think you got it.
I think
You
I'm
got
good. I can stop selling this one
You got it.
after 38
No,
years.
I think-
Whew,
I think
I was really
she- I think
worried
she
about
stuck
it.
with you, Keith.
But she stuck with me? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? The way you
it's
said it?
All the above.
All of the above. I've got some texts. Do we want to go back and talk about the Drewberry?
Oh, yeah.
Do we want to tap?
Same.
Do we want to tack?
I wonder if it's the same person reaching out to you that's reaching out to me.
Well, she reached out to me too, so I'm just going to jump in if
Yeah,
I can.
please,
So one of your listeners and
Yeah.
somebody I know in the community.
This was a male on my end, but go
Oh,
ahead.
female on my end.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And I have said my opinion on the Dewberry, which used to be the landmark. I was at the groundbreaking for it when I was mayor of Charlottesville, and that was 2009, I believe. So it's been a lingering, a festering sore, on the downtown mall for many years now. And my attitude in terms of Mr. Dewberry himself has been, he listens to dollars. You can't listen to dollar signs, but he pays attention to dollar signs. And I have felt for quite some time now that it seems to me the only truly viable solution is for the city and its partners to assemble a team of investors who will buy him out and get that project done. And I'm not saying
is
this,
that even feasible? Why would he? Do
again, he pays attention to dollar signs. If you make it worth his while, I'm not saying pay him 10 times what it's worth, but I'm just saying
that might be what it takes.
I don't think so. He's a smart businessman.
He's paying a lot of taxes. I think it's like $75,000 a year in
Right.
taxes.
and he's milking it, right? So he's he's
what do we do with it?
They
We
call
ju-
him
we
the
just-
emperor of empty lots. This is what he does.
I've changed that moniker
Oh, what do
to
you-
the extorting emperor
There you go.
of empty lots.
Has wearing no
And-
clothes.
right.
Well, it has to have ease for the alliteration. Extorting emperor of empty
Got
lots.
it.
Right. And when I say he's a smart businessman, what I mean is he knows how
That's
to
his
work the
business.
system.
That's his business
Yeah,
model.
see, so, okay, Neil says property owners have rights as well, Mr. Norris. And I'm
That-
going to play devil's advocate for the sake of a talk show.
right.
You ready?
Yeah.
Devil's advocate for the sake of
Yeah.
a talk show. Early in the show, we were talking about ADUs and how if you were elected, you would empower the homeowner to do what he or she can do with their property, specifically ADUs. Mr. Dewberry is paying his taxes.
Right. So
Is
that's
this
why
not
I
the
say
same circumstance of
the
property
city
rights?
options are limited in terms of what they can require him to do. So that's my
So
whole
how can
point.
we fix
My
that?
whole point is let's dangle a carrot in front of his face and say, we have assembled a team of buyers. The city knows a lot of people in this locality and beyond who could come together and say, we're going to put a package together that's going to make it worth your while.
So we do that. What do we
Yes.
do with it then? Let's say we put it together. We offer
Probably
them.
tear it down, unfortunately.
That's exactly
Well, that's the
what I'm
first
getting to.
question that people have
You
to
have to
get.
tear it down.
You have to.
It's at the point that
Well,
needs
yeah,
to happen.
I'm not a structural engineer.
Then you get the dirt.
But it's still it's a very exciting opportunity to do something very
Sure.
creative on the downtown mall. I mean, how many development sites are there on the downtown mall? And so.
I can tell you from a structural perspective, I know this much about it. That's been in the weather far too long without a skin on it, and that is a tension steel concrete, and it is rusting internally out. Also, other than a hotel, because of the floor over floor is so low on it, it can't be converted into condos or
No,
anything
no,
like that.
no.
But other than, I have an idea on this, but other than
What, tiny apartments?
Actually, this is the first time our chemistry is not working in
No.
quite a while. That is not exactly
Really?
what I
Okay.
was thinking. What other tools does the city have or can create to help fix this, other
Well,
than purchasing
I mean, the
it?
city tried. Okay, the city. I am no Dewberry.
Now we're back on the.
I'm no Dewberry fan. He's the extorting emperor of empty lots. I'm no Dewberry fan. I will say that he is paying his taxes. Lloyd Snook on the show has said we cannot eminent domain him, and he has property rights. That's what he said on the show. I think the city really has its hands tied. Its hands tied. I think what it should consider is some kind of tax incentive potentially for Dewberry to develop. It offered a parking package. Michael, in a lot of ways, kiboshed that parking package some years ago as he was running for Charlottesville City Council, Michael Payne. I think we have to incentivize him somehow.
But you're rewarding bad behavior in doing that. So I would partially agree with you in that let's figure out what a tax package could look like, but not for him, for this new investor.
But here's the problem is, and I respect the comment of rewarding bad behavior. You're 100% right. But if you buy this building with a group of investors, you're taking good money and throwing it into after bad money. What's the saying?
That's exactly the same.
Because the city would then own the most valuable piece of
I'm
dirt
sorry.
on the downtown
I'm
mall,
sorry.
or a group of investors
Thank you.
would.
I was saying the
Yeah.
city could help assemble a group of. I'm not saying the city should be one of those investors.
Yeah.
I'm saying the city should be.
Stakeholders like Ludwig and Allen.
There's-
But gentlemen, there is going to come a point when that's a safety hazard.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then you can.
'Cause that's
then,
been up since about
and then eminent
2010.
domain could be invoked. You know, if
we
it
have-
gets to be a blighted structure, that's
We
a-
don't. I don't think we
that's
have
a-
an ordinance that
Oh,
defines it.
absolutely.
We
Like,
have an ordinance.
I'm
that
saying if
defines it.
the city can condemn blighted structures right now and has done so. And there's been some argument about whether this meets those criteria yet. Some people say yes, some people say no. But if you start to see it start to disintegrate or start to
Well, when it gets to that point, it's
Right.
just going to come down.
Right.
Right. So, and I know they've had engineers go in there and look at it, and I'm sure at some point they're going to relook at it again. I'm just telling you, somebody knows a little bit about this kind of work.
Yeah,
At some point in time, it's going to be structurally unsound. When that is, I'm not enough of an engineer to tell you that, but at some
Man,
point
I would
in
just
time,
love to give this guy, and I completely understand Dave's point of hooking a guy up that's trying to rake the city over the coals. But give
No.
this guy some kind of tax package, parking package, and then recoup the revenue that comes from meals taxes and lodging taxes. Let's just get this monstrosity off the skyline.
So sometimes you have to take the path of least resistance, do what you don't want to do, sometimes reward bad behavior, right, just to get to the betterment for everybody.
Because
across the
Dewberry
board.
knows he's got us.
Oh, without a doubt.
And he's also
Well,
stung.
to Dave's point, this is his model. This is his business
this is
model.
what
But
he does.
he's also stung because of how the negotiation happened with the parking piece.
That's exactly
in the
right.
bottom of the ninth inning, because he feels the city negotiated in bad faith.
So I
And
almost,
Snook pretty much said that on the show.
wasn't going to bring this up, but I flipped my page over. I'm
All
going
right,
to bring it up.
Let's bring it up. What are we bringing up?
Back to this red tape, back to this base conversation. I have to leave individuals out of it and specific properties out of it because it was a confidential conversation. So I'm going to dance around this
Sure.
a little carefully.
Okay.
But there is a very a perfect parcel within the city of Charlottesville that could meet affordable housing needs, could on a transit line, that could have nonprofits in the bottom. You know, everybody can extrapolate the parcel from that, right? I was meeting with certain individuals involved in that project yesterday, and they are flabbergasted because the city is requiring this individual, this organization, to show them their profit and loss statement. They want to know how much money they're making in order to agree to work with them. And that doesn't have a damn thing to do in the conversation. So what's going to happen, because we have certain individuals that don't know how to negotiate, that don't know how to put into those 4 pillars, that's going to probably go market, which we're not going to get 100 units. We're not going to get a place for home for nonprofits. It is not going to help anybody out. And they ultimately is going to go that path. So that's this red tape into green tape. You know, it's a
Right,
rules kind of thing. But I was flabbergasted to hear that, and I'm going to backstop it and make sure that's really happening and have questions
Yeah,
with
yeah,
local
yeah.
folks. But if that thinking doesn't change, we're not going to get anywhere.
Right, right. And that's where you need champions. You need champions on city council. You need champions on the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors. You need champions in the General Assembly. You need champions to make this stuff happen. Like, I can't tell you how many times on city council I had small business owners, everyday residents, homeowners, others come to me and say, I'm having an issue with this city department, that city department. I'm getting the runaround here, or the red tape here. And I tried to do my best. You know, the mayor doesn't run the city, obviously, but I tried to do my best to intervene, to advocate.
Well, you have some weight. I mean,
You
you
have
can't
weight.
run it.
You have weight. And there were certain city department heads, and I don't want to call anybody out because I don't want to get them in trouble, but there were certain city department heads. There was one in particular who ran a major city department, and I knew if I called that person up and I explained the situation, I'm like, this is crazy, like, this, can you help? That they would work through that bureaucratic logjam.
So to tie this back to your race, your House race, so out in the western states, if this particular project checked all the boxes, the local jurisdiction would have nothing to say about it because it would automatically get approved. I think that's a long stretch for us to have this.
I don't see that happening. But yeah,
in our state,
Right.
but the ADUs is a small step forward.
yeah.
I love it, guys. Coffee with the Candidates on a Friday is literally one of my favorite shows.
And it took almost a whole coffee for me to get going.
You guys are fantastic. So, Dave, you want to send folks to the website, right? Votefordave.org.
Votefordave.org. Early voting starts May 5th. You can vote at the county office building or city hall.
Financial contributions through the website.
Through the website, and information on the platform, how you can get involved. If you want to, my yard signs are in finally. If you want a yard sign, I would love to send my team out to deliver. We will deliver a yard sign to your doorstep. If you want to get involved as a volunteer, it's all on votefordave.org, my platform. I have a running blog there talking about issues and talking about the campaign with updates. I have a section with all the news articles about the campaign. So there's a lot there. And just yesterday, thanks to a new volunteer, I am not a social media. I've been on Facebook forever, but I'm not particularly savvy when it comes to social media. And I have now an Instagram page.
Oh, nice.
I'm now finally caught up to 2010.
Good job, Dave.
For the campaign, not for me personally. But so I'm on Instagram now. So yeah, and we've got. I don't want to say anything in too much detail because I don't want to give away, but. Mark your calendars, June 10th. I've got a big event you're not going to want to miss. I'm really excited about it. June 10th, you will be hearing more about that soon.
I'll put it on my calendar.
Yes.
Dave, thank you so much.
Yeah, man.
For me to sit here and shut up takes a little bit, so thank you. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for, I'm going to jumble the words around a little bit because I prefer
That's
housing
okay.
affordability.
That's okay.
Your housing affordability
Housing
platform
affordability
on it. A little real estate thing, as I've been watching the 7-day counter as you guys have been chatting, we're up to 90 homes on the market. Get out there. We only have 70 that went in the last 7 days. So we're starting to see a flip here.
Yeah.
We're starting to see, I think you're going to start seeing inventory tick up. I will say this same week last year was 120. So we're not as much as we were last year, but we're starting to uptick a little bit.
moving in the right direction.
Get out there and start looking. If you're in the market, look at some houses. And yes, to Jerry's point, I do actually sell.
He's a realtor.
I'm a realtor.
He's a realtor.
And again, I'm not just blowing smoke, but you've been a real champion. You've been one of those champions
Thank you.
for housing affordability. I won't say affordable housing. Housing affordability.
You say whatever you want, Dave.
I work every day with Shekinah Mitchell, who's now running the land trust, and she was a great hire, by the way. And,
Thank you.
But that seed that you helped to plant is just sprouting everywhere now. So thank you.
Thank you.
Dave Norris, Keith Smith, you guys, great show. Excellent
you,
work.
Jerry.
Excellent
My
work.
pleasure.
Judah Wickower, the director of the show, archived, realtalkwithkeithsmith.com. My name is Jerry Miller. Thank you kindly for joining us. Take care.
Thanks, Dave.
Oh, man.
Thank you.
Easy peasy.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Sorry about the. Is it allergies or a cold?
No, it was